Sid Calixo Phillips. Hello.
Hello.
First, I would like to thank you for your time. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for being here, letting me do this interview, taking an hour of your time. I very much appreciate it. This interview will be an hour long, and it's going to be a way I can get more information from you, figure out how you're living a dream life, why you think you're living a dream life, so I can then make a profile on you later and share that with the world. See if anyone can get inspired, use you as an inspiration.
Sounds great. Very happy to be here.
Um, I got some questions here. Beginning with your background in childhood, I would like to dive into how you've grown into a person you are today. Childhood is a very important part of developing a character, and I'm curious to see how yours has affected who you are today. My first question is, how is your relationship with your parents?
I'd say that my relationship with my parents is very good. I hang out with them a lot, like not just for family events or whatever, but just to hang out because like we genuinely enjoy all sitting around and hanging out. In fact, you have been there many times doing this, so you understand that dynamic very well. But it's very much like hanging out with your friends in the sense that we're able to sit and play games and talk about all kinds of things. So I'd say it's very good, and it's always been very good because I had a very good childhood as with them. They treated me very well and raised me very well.
Alright, following that, I would like to ask, how has your relationship with your parents shaped you into who you are today?
Well, I think it's helped me to, since I've always had very thoughtful, caring parents as far as, raising me. I think it's helped me to be more compassionate now, especially as I've grown older, like in recent years. Like a few years ago, I remember very specifically being very unempathetic, like apathetic, I guess I should say. Um, like to, like just very much so, like just like not caring at all really about like other people in such a sense. And now as I've kind of grown, I've like understood, how important it is to keep in mind at all times that every person you interact with or hear about or think about experiences all the same emotions as you do. So if you keep that in mind, I think it makes the way you interact much better. And that I feel my parents have really not so much pounded that idea into me because it's not something they would make a point of, but just by leading by example, they've given me this belief, if that makes sense.
No, I can get that. And yeah, being with your parents, they're fun. They're fun to hang out with, and it's nice to hang out with all y'all on the porch and stuff and just talk. Where did you grow up as a child?
So, kind of half and half. The first like 8 years or so, I lived in DeLand, Florida, in a house on the corner of Fippen and Rich. That was, like a fine older house that my parents had renovated. We all moved there, and it was, like an okay neighborhood for the most part. And it was very close to downtown DeLand, so kind of we'd go there a lot. We had a lot of neighbors around that we were friends with. We would ride the bikes, go in the woods, whatever. And I liked DeLand a lot growing up there most of my life. And then after that, from probably like 9 to 19 or so, I lived still with my parents. We all moved uh, to De Leon Springs, a town directly north of DeLand, Florida, where we lived far out in the woods, like a very swampy area. And that gave me a whole interesting other perspective because we had animals out there, we had all this land, there was very different people out there and everything, and so I kind of things changed a lot. New school, that was very different, right?
It's actually where we met. Yeah.
Yeah, and I liked living out there a lot. I had friends that similarly the neighborhood, but the nearest neighbor was like a quarter mile away.
Yeah.
we'd ride bikes through the woods and hang out and, build little tree forts and stuff. So, yeah, I've enjoyed both of those places that I grew up in.
It's very interesting. No, but yeah, the house we met, the Deep Creek Branch Road, yeah. It was like a 30-minute drive to get to anyone's house, besides the people that live directly near you.
Yes, it was over a mile down a very potholy, bumpy dirt road, so you couldn't drive more than maybe 20 miles an hour on the dirt road without risking flying off of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it took an extra 10 minutes to get anywhere, not to mention it was kind of outside of town of a really small town next to a fairly small city. So it was
Pearson, not the
hard
biggest.
to get to.
Yeah. What games or hobbies did you like playing growing up? Like, what entertained you? What kept you
Well, definitely,
interested?
a lot of stuff. I've gone through periods of times where intermittently I'll play more video games like Minecraft, Skyrim, GTA 5, and all the GTAs, are like staples in my life. Of like I've played a lot, like I've played through the campaigns and whatever. But also I've always, always, always very much loved board games, card games. Obviously, you know this very well. And I ran the whole strategy club, and you ran it with me in high school, specifically meant for all that. And eventually that kind of evolved, maybe like 15 years old or so. My brother started playing D, and then I started playing D&D with him and his friends. And so that evolved into a whole other arc of now I really like tabletop games and tabletop role-playing games and especially very strategic games,
D&D was, I think, one of the first ways we started hanging out. We started playing at the old Taylor Strategy Club.
Because you came to the club, yes, when the original
and
iteration
we bonded over that.
Yeah.
And then we from there we had sleepovers. We started playing video games together. We started playing more games together. We started linking our friend groups.
Yeah. And this is a little backtracking, but also as well, I mean, games like playing outside and stuff. I mean, like playing hide and seek,
manhunt,
tag and manhunt, and playing with swords and lightsabers and stuff like that, and running around and riding on bikes and driving. I love driving. Like that, I feel is a hobby on its own. I just wanted to add that.
What did you see yourself being when you were growing up? What was your dream job, career, passion?
Well, I'd say I went through two main phases. The little kid phase of probably until I was 14 or 15, where it's you want to be everything. You want to be a SWAT man and a military man, a fireman, whatever. And then eventually I kind of started honing in maybe in my early teen years to writing. Like I wanted to write books, which I still would like to do. But then I decided more primarily, maybe 9th or 10th grade, that I wanted to be a lawyer. And for a long time, not write books, I wanted to write films.
Yeah, that's different.
Excuse me, wow. Drinking too much red cream soda.
We do have some water.
But, so, now I've been on this path of becoming a lawyer for a long time. So that's what I've primarily deeply believed myself to do. And I've always held it strong also as well in my belief that I don't know for sure what I'm going to do, and I've given myself the leeway of I can always change it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's been the main option as a lawyer, for sure.
Keeping your doors open, but have a idea in mind, a place you're trying to drive for. Who and what is your inspiration currently?
Currently, inspiration? That's a good question. Definitely.
Or even was your inspiration growing up?
Maybe a little bit for like the screenwriting sense. like George Lucas in a way of just like, oh, I loved his stuff and I like to make stuff like that. But more generally now, especially, I really feel like most of my family members and my girlfriend and myself all like just keeping an eye on the solid progress and continuous effort put into making lives making our lives go the directions we want, like watching
Mm-hmm.
my parents, watching my sister, watching myself, my girlfriend. That shared drive is the most inspiring thing to me, I feel.
All right, yeah, because everyone in your family seems to have really strong mindsets and where they want to go. It seems y'all help each other a decent amount, at least giving advice or tips, aid where you can.
Yes.
And that I have looked at your family and been that is amazing. I'm glad that y'all have each other for that. Um, what hobbies are you currently partaking in, like actively?
Well, as of late, really, my doing of hobbies has died down a lot, especially the last few months, just because I can't really drive, so I can't really go and do much stuff. But I'd say, recently a lot of bed rotting, watching TV has been a big hobby, which, kind of sucks, but it's also fun. I've been getting to see things that I've been wanting to see for a while. But, um, I'm trying to get back into D&D here soon. Um, and honestly, yeah, I really haven't, like, my hobbies are on pause kind of at the moment.
And that's because of your recent seizure.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're okay
So
talking about that.
yeah, of course. So on October 24th of last year, I had a seizure, and when you have a seizure, you have to wait 6 months before you can drive again. So unless, of course, you have another seizure, in which case they tack on 6 more months. But I haven't had another one, and I've been completely fine. So hopefully, come May, beginning of May, I will have that appointment with my neurologist and be cleared to drive again.
How has your recent seizure affected your life majorly? What else has it taken from you besides driving and?
Well, it's kind of two sides of it. In the more literal, straightforward side, it's affected me in the way of I have not been able to drive, therefore, where I was living in Miami with my girlfriend in an apartment we were renting, I couldn't go to work. I couldn't drive myself to work. So what we did was immediately upon learning that that was going to be a long-term issue, is we decided to move from Miami back to here, where we would have more of a support system, cheaper rent, be able to take a step back, because it was just like living there, we weren't gonna be able to afford that continuously. Mm-hmm. She would be the only one working, and I would be missing out on school because
You can't
whatever. Drive. So, and then that's caused us to move here, where I worked at an old job that I used to have, and in turn, because I still couldn't drive, my girlfriend had to drive a half hour to drop me off in the morning, and then an hour and a half the opposite direction to go to her job, and then an hour and a half back to pick me up in the evening, and then 30 minutes back home. Right, so we changed it up. I got a job right next to hers, same company, and because those jobs, even though we could carpool and we had mostly the same shifts, it was still an hour drive, and we eventually decided, let's move out there to Sanford, where we live now, where we're at right now in our new apartment, and that'll be our life for the next year because we have a year lease. So it's affected me in that whole long running scheme of events. Of I was in Miami, I was going to FIU, I was making a lot of money with the construction and with the tutoring, but at a certain point I was like, okay, I gotta step back, chill out. Now I'm in Sanford, not in school right now, but after I can drive again, I plan to go back. And we're here for a while, and I'm at a new job that, I love, whatever. Meeting great people there. So
that's great. You're
a mix of good and bad, and just new. It's just been different, right? And uh, I've been very content with it so far. You know, I'm not especially troubled or anything. But then on the other side of the equation of how it affects me, you know, from the top with not being able to drive, that's something that I love doing so much is driving. Just, I mean, you have a lot of experience of every gathering that
Carpooling
we
all of
do
our
with all of our
friends.
friends when I was the first one to be able to drive, and for many, many, many occasions I've driven, you know, an
Mm-hmm.
hour around so I can pick everyone up and
As
whatever.
soon as you were almost even able to drive, it seemed like you've been carpooling all of us.
Yes, because I love doing it. I love driving around. So that's been a little sad, I'll say, but it's like, whatever, I'll be able to in a few months. I've been keeping that kind of mindset of like, honestly, like, so what? You know, even if I have another seizure tomorrow and I can't for another 6 months, it's like, well, at least, you know, I'm alive, so that's cool, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
whatever. So I've been handling that well. It has also affected me very much in the way that I've been more frustrated very often and irritated because, you know, it's a little bit of an ordeal. You know, it's like living here, really enjoying it, bad medical issue, life gets kind of switched up on you.
Is
It's like,
is there any other hobbies, interests, or anything else that's been affected besides your driving?
yes, so that's kind of the next points I was going to say, in fact, was the things that I would normally do very often and that I enjoyed doing a lot, I haven't been able to do. So, hanging out with my friends as much. Now we've got a pretty good thing going where at least, uh, you know, my friends, Brendan, you
Mm-hmm.
recording this,
Yeah.
and your girlfriend, Jean, come over pretty often. We hang out. But, you know, before I would kind of go out and do a lot more stuff with people because I'd be driving us around, right? Of course, rock climbing is a huge one. I loved
Yeah.
rock climbing. We both went for that entire year. We had a year long passes, and we went multiple times a week, and we got very skilled. And we went on a trip to Tennessee with Gary and everyone. And that was an
That was
amazing
great.
time. And it's really something that has improved me physically an insane amount, to a point that I love very much, and also it's given me, you know, that new community and friendships and that trip that I got to go do. That was a whole experience and all kinds of stuff. As well as, of course, D&D is another thing that's been affected very intensely. Living in Miami, I already wasn't playing D&D as much because our buddies up here, you know, I would have had to do through Zoom, and I only really felt like doing that so often. And I did have a group that I played with down there, but it was just kind of infrequent meetings, you know. So that's something that I really enjoy that I haven't been able to do as much. Um, and, you know, this is kind of back on like the just driving in general part, but going out and doing things and going on vacations, especially like when I was driving, we, my girlfriend and I drove us uh, to a weekend vacation in Miami,
Yeah.
right? A couple times before we moved there. And then when we were down there, I drove us up here to visit my parents and you guys and hang out and everything, like for your birthday
You
and
drove
all
up here
kinds of stuff.
frequently when you could.
And I did that, you know, quite a few times. And I drove us to Tennessee. I love doing vacations, and especially now as I've been getting older and, you know, maybe having more funds to do them and stuff like that, I've been like more and more excited. Like, yes, I can't wait to do this. So then being like, oh, now I can't for a long time. And even once I can, it's still this really sketchy thing of excuse me, maybe I will have another seizure, right? And going on a long road trip is concerning when you're concerned you may have a seizure, right?
Yeah,
like those
being
do
behind the
not,
wheel
those
or even
really
just
don't go well together.
No.
Even just driving again in general is going to be a fairly anxiety-inducing type of situation. I think there's bats in the ceiling.
Oh my lord, I think there is.
But so you know, I've had kind of all those hobbies and other minor things, I guess. Like I did like the Lions Club for a little while and stuff.
Yeah.
But I just, it's just doing stuff has been prohibited. Like I said, I don't do much anymore. Like I sit around the house.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend and I, we go out places, but not all that much.
Um, what is your religion? Because a lot of people they religion is an important part of their life. A lot of people religion drives them. What's your religion?
Well, I'm atheist, so that is, a complete lack of a religion. That is. I don't believe that there is any sort of higher power whatsoever, any sort of god or gods or anything, or spirits or anything supernatural like that. And not to say that, like, there definitely isn't, because, like, I could be wrong, like, who knows. But I just don't think there is, really. And, like, nothing wrong with religions. I love religion. I love learning about it. I find it very interesting. I've been to church before, and I find it to be a very good experience generally. Like, I enjoy the community of it and the attitude and everything. But I just, I don't know. I wasn't raised to think that. I just don't happen to think it. I'm gonna kill this spider. Apologies for the loud noise.
It's all good. It's all good.
But so religion, I don't believe it.
All
That's
right.
really it.
Well, now knowing that you're an atheist, if you're willing, I'd like to ask more questions regarding your religion and atheism.
Of course.
For many people, religion is important for them. It's their way of life and stuff. So the very fact that you don't have or believing in that is pretty fascinating. It might reveal a little bit more about what drives you, what's your inspiration. How did atheism come to be your religion of choice? Is it like, when did you have that revelation? It's like, probably not there.
So it comes down to this. There never was a realization of that's not real, because I was never in the first place made to believe that something was.
Even from
So,
when you were
like,
a kid, your parents didn't do the
nothing.
whole...
And like my parents, their own religious beliefs aside, they just, not that they told us it's not real. They didn't even do that. They just didn't give an opinion, right?
Oh.
They allowed us to view it, around us with other people. I went to church with my friends' parents. They didn't mind, whatever. But they posited absolutely no opinion towards it. They would discuss it, but they just weren't saying that's real or not. So it's really just like for anyone, like for yourself, Christian, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would have to imagine that's been in your life for such a long time that was probably just what you've always believed, right? Like, there's probably not a time before you didn't believe in God. So in my case, it's the exact same thing, but opposite. It's just like that was never in my mind.
All right. How do you think your disbelief in a God has influenced your motivation and drive, particularly in relation to the fear of death, no afterlife, just continuing on?
So my thing with that is, it's very much like, stuff. Yeah, sorry, I keep killing things. Oops. But it's very much for me. I've kind of thought this through, actually. This point that kind of answers that question. Religion, I feel, is very much kind of an answer. People ask, like, why are we here? And also very big question of, like, what happens after death, right? And it's kind of this whole thing of searching for, like, a purpose, right? Or gaining, what do you call it? Gaining confidence that, it's not pointless. Your existence, your life, or whatever isn't pointless. So for me, I agree, obviously, that, I have a reason to be here. My life is important and everything, but I agree with it in a different sense. Not because a God has created us and made us to be, and it's important how we live our life because it determines whether or not we end up in eternal heaven or eternal hell. For me, it's the lack of us being here for any reason, and specifically the fact that we die and how short our lives are, and the ratio of what we can accomplish in our lives versus our understanding of how much an accomplishment is worth.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's like the fact that we do die and we do have that limited amount of things we can accomplish and stuff we can do and things we can experience, that's what makes it important for me to simply make the best of that time, enjoy it, and do the best that I can, in the world around me with that time, because it's just like, I'm here for a short set amount of time. I'm just gonna make the best of it because that's all I have, and I don't think there's anything inside or outside or around or of that or whatever. So it's just like, this is it. I'm just gonna do it, and when it's over, I'll be asleep, and I'll have been awake, and it'll have been nice. I love sleeping so much. So it's just like,
Sleep is
yeah,
very
I'm
nice.
gonna have the best time of my life for my whole life, and then I'll go to sleep. So.
I have a source here. In the book Atheism, What Everyone Needs to Know, a study was conducted back in 2014 on professionals in both physical and biological science fields. This study involved a survey on their belief in God with a turnout of roughly 80% strongly disagreeing in a God in any way. Seeing as how these above average specialists don't believe in a God, in what ways do you feel atheism has influenced your personal and professional choices? And do you feel it has played a role in shaping your life and who you aspire to how you aspire to live? What I'm really trying to ask is these people who have above average intellect, these professionals in these fields, they strongly disbelieve in a God. Do you feel that part of your logical brain is that similar? Do you draw any connections?
Well, I think there's maybe an argument to be had that some people might bring up about, oh well, maybe those higher IQ, is it, or is it more successful? What are they measuring those people's success by?
So these are professionals in their fields of both physical and biological. Just these scientists
Yes.
who have studied in these fields for long periods of times. For a long period of time, they're renowned. They took this survey. They don't believe in a religion as well, and
yes. So I think there's an argument to be made that those people, because they're in these advanced fields, are smarter, right? And smarter people think more logically, and because believing in a God is a more feelings-based thing, then, more feelings-based people will be more likely to believe in God, whereas more logical people will be more likely to believe in, no God. But I think that argument is kind of based on a fallacy of how it synonymizes smart people with logical thinkers. Because if you listen to an IQ test, per se, that is going to be talking about logical thinking, critical thinking skills, critical reasoning, whatever, which people think of as smart. And it is, the better you have those skills, sure, the smarter you are. But the same is true for, more like empathetic type skills. Like I'm not like emotional skills.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not super emotionally skilled, I feel. I'm more logically skilled, which I maybe because I'm more logical like that, right, is why I believe in no higher being. But that's not to say that I'm smarter than someone who believes in Christianity and is more emotionally intelligent, because that more emotionally intelligent person might be the marine biologist that got that far
Mm-hmm.
because they're able to work with people and gain a better understanding of things in whatever different way than I might not be able to.
Tying onto that thought where you're comparing logical and people who just want to believe something for an answer, the book Atheism, What Everyone Needs to Know, the author poses the idea that believers, at some deep level, are possibly just kidding themselves and are just scared of death or frightened of illness or want to meet a deceased loved one once again. Basically, backing up that idea that critical thinkers, people who have been studying the science, they're more thinking logically than a hope, per se. Um, as someone who doesn't believe in the afterlife or a god, how do you cope with these raw emotions that some people seemingly must return to their How do you cope with death? Sorry, back
I
and
think I
throw out.
cope with
How do you cope with
death.
passing and death?
I think I cope with death very, very well. Honestly, I just it's not to say that I don't care. Like I care very deeply and I'll be sad when someone passes or whatever and thinking about my own death, but it's just like it's something I am very willing to accept because it's just like such a deeply obvious truth, and because I've never had this notion in my mind that there might be something afterwards and then it matters what you do now for what you do afterwards. I think it's kind of desensitized me, not in a bad way, in a way that maybe worrying about those things could oversensitize you a little bit. If you're worried
Mm-hmm.
about whether or not you go to heaven or hell, and when you die, that choice is going to be made and whatever, then sorry, I sneezed.
It's all good.
But if you are too worried about that, then that would make you have a negative kind of view on death, right? Most
Mm-hmm.
people are very scared of dying. And not to say that I'm not scared of dying, it is like, yeah, like I don't want to die right now. And
It's kind of like how you said before. You just got to make the most with the time you have.
yeah, I'm just like, I'm not gonna worry about, like I can't allow that to worsen my time being here by being in the back of my mind. Like that's just silly to me.
Mm-hmm.
And especially there's one more point I wanted to hit on as a part of that. Oh, but I think I lost it. I forgot in the rambling there. I had thought of one little thing, but I lost it.
I feel that. You kind of talked how you can't let those negative emotions into your brain. You can't let those negative thoughts seep in. How do you? First off, some people can't distinguish sometimes when their intrusive thoughts come in. How do you manage to isolate those, and how do you then manage to just cope when these negative thoughts arise?
Well, I'd say I cope by getting my mind off of it. But the thing is, I really don't get those negative thoughts like that much. Like I get it, you know, but it's very no. Like I don't believe it. I might think, oh, like I could die doing this, today, whatever. But I don't really like truly deeply believe that that's going to happen, and I don't know. I guess I just don't really fear it like that.
All right. You can kind of just isolate those outlandish thoughts and then just
Yes.
no.
I will
Deny.
say, the point that I was going to say earlier is I do now feel more fearful of dying recently because I worry about people close to me, obviously like my family and stuff, would be sad.
Yeah.
And I would hate to do that to them. That would be terrible. And
I think
thinking about that genuinely makes me sad and maybe a little bit afraid.
It's very considerate of you, and
Yeah.
I think it's a feeling a lot of people can relate to.
I would suppose so. I feel
Yeah.
that's empathy, and that's something I used to lack. I truly, I mean, not literally lack entirely, but in that specific sense, I really didn't get that, like, growing up. That idea.
So, now bear with me here. Speaking about emotional control, many people use hobbies as a method to deal with burdens of life. I would like to shift over to a conversation about some of your hobbies now. Let's start with climbing. You mentioned you like climbing, specifically bouldering.
Yes.
You had a year-plus long adventure with climbing with moi, and we went on many trips, which you said you enjoyed doing. We've known each other for quite some time now, and over that time, we've done a lot of bouldering. Now let me get to the heart of my question. Sorry. In the article, Indoor Rock Climbing, Bouldering, as a new treatment for depression, a study design of waitlist controlled randomized group pilot study and the results. It's a long title.
That is intense, yeah.
A study was conducted to test the effects of bouldering on depression. The study actually showed bouldering as an effective treatment. With this information in mind, what would you say the effects of bouldering had on your mental health through that year-long adventure, before your seizure, before recent times?
I'd say it helped in a lot of ways. So, for one, body image a ton. Because as I was bouldering, I was able to gain weight, right? And gain muscle tonnage. And fill out just my body shape, my bones a little better with my body, in a way that I really, really liked. And I found that to be, very positive, very inspiring and everything. But it's also helped me kind of mentally, in a sense, not in like a major way, I'd say, but it helps get a little bit of aggression out just because it's physical activity, and it can be very tiring on your body, and I feel as if that helps me calm down, right? And it also helps very much as a routine and an activity, a stimulating activity for your mind. It's something that you have to put a lot of thought into, and it allows me to connect socially with a lot of people because I talk to people and I hang out with people while I'm there. So it really activates your mind. It's just doing something that isn't sitting at home, right? So just like if you went bowling or just to the regular gym or shopping or whatever, it turns your mind on. Maybe more than some of those examples, but it's just a positive experience for me overall.
So if we had to compare it to like a stat chart, you'd just
Yeah.
all of them. It seemed to really have improved a lot of things.
Yeah, and I think it also had to do with what I was going through at different times during that year, in terms of just where my life was. I feel like it always is for me, but I feel like, especially kind of then, it was a nice concentration of a upwards movement. And so I think maybe that biased it a little bit, but yeah, I just love rock climbing, and I love to do things that I love. It's something that I wanted to do for many years beforehand, and I knew I could not, and then I had the opportunity, and I did it, and I used it to its fullest extent. We were there. We went for a long time.
Over a
3
year.
times a week.
3 times.
And then we'd go 2 times a week later, but still a lot. We went on the trip to Tennessee with Gary. We
went with
other
the
people
owner
involved.
of the gym.
Yeah. So it's just like I really it was something I wanted to do and I did it and I want to continue doing it in the future.
Yes.
Right now I have to wait.
When you
because
heal up,
of the seizure.
that would be amazing. We should start doing that again. With that in mind, your recent seizure has... Well, actually, before we even get there, what fascinated me about the article is it was over the span of 8 weeks. They tested a study group that went in, they did climbing, and it showed that community of people going climbing, it boosted their morale. It helped with depression for some of them. And now that was over 8 weeks. We had a way longer span. And I was just curious how the comparison between 8 weeks showing some boosts in depression to over a year showing boosts in mental health, mind, body, physical.
It really
just...
It's a very helpful thing. And I don't want to act like it's like rock climbing specifically is the superfood, but the type of activity it is and the time in my life that I started doing it and the people I was doing it around, and especially the location. Shout out to Dino Climb in DeLand, Florida. Amazing place,
yes.
Amazing people.
Hopefully this interview goes viral somehow.
But your teacher posted online.
Yeah.
No, but doing that there was just like such an overwhelmingly positive experience, and like I was saying before, the activity of it was very beneficial.
Well, let's dive into it just a little bit more. How would you say your mental health feels now after your how many months forcibly removed from dino climbing compared to when you were? It's been worse? Just straight up?
I mean, to be fair, obviously, I've been dealing with some other things, but I have been specifically unhappy with the fact that I haven't been going to Dino Climb and climbing. I even went to another gym in Miami. I told you about this, and I went to this gym and it was terrible. I couldn't tell the difference between the colors of the holds, which of course is very important for doing rock climbing routes, doing bouldering, in an indoor gym, because they were covered in dust and chalk. It looked like they never cleaned them. It was very sad.
Yeah, it is truly sad, and I wish this whole interview could be on rock climbing, but unfortunately we're going to have to move on to the next topic.
I guess, real quick, to answer more so the actual mental, like how it really affected me since then, obviously vastly taking into account the other things that have been going on, but I have felt much more often more like depressed and afraid and anxious and very upset. I've been very frustrated a lot, but also I've had bouts of depression very much unlike what I've experienced before. Like I've had, not like depression like long, but like I'll be sad and upset.
Yeah.
And that's not something that I really had to deal with much before, and now it happens sometimes, and obviously I move past it, whatever, but it is a really like crushing feeling of just like, this is a bad scenario, which overall my scenario is good, but certain aspects, especially when it builds up and you really think about it too much, feels like a very bad scenario, and it's like, what am I gonna do from here? But
yeah, it's unfortunate. You talked about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
And how even that has been affected, your TTRPG life. You haven't been able to do that as much because you've been isolated from your groups that you play with. I would like to talk a little bit more about your hobby of tabletop gaming, and ask some questions upon that. Specifically more on Dungeons and Dragons and your love for the game.
Mm-hmm.
What has interested you in TTRPGs?
Like what got me into it?
What do you like about it right now?
Oh.
Why do you like it? Why do you play it?
So there's a few parts. First of all, well, let's start. You know what? Let's go through TTRPG.
All right.
T, right?
Tabletop.
Tabletop. Tabletop. I love tabletop games. I've always loved sitting around at a table with people doing physical things.
That community.
Yeah, it's just like, it's fun. Just like it would be fun to sit around and play video games with your friends, but it's more thoughtful, close. It's more fun to me.
Having
It's
other
just
people involved.
yeah, and we could sit on the couch and we're equally involved playing Mortal Kombat on the TV, but sitting around a board game to me, I enjoy more than sitting around on a couch and playing video games or something like that. And then getting to the specifics of games like D&D, I love the strategy of it. I love, gaining an in-depth understanding of the rules and learning how to best use those rules to your advantage, right? To win the game or to, have fun in the game, not necessarily win, because D&D is not exactly like that. And on the RPG side, right, role-playing game, it gives you the opportunity to make a story with people, and I love storytelling. Like I had mentioned before, wanting to be a writer, wanting to be a screenwriter, right? That being able to create a story, especially with a group of people, and have them mold it with you, is just super fun, and I love doing that. So all of those aspects together, it's just like, it's so fun for me.
One of the things I've noticed through our adventures of playing D&D and learning more about the game is it requires a lot of cognitive thinking and basic math skills.
Yes, I can add numbers. I can add 3d6 so fast, man, it's unbelievable. I can add numbers of below 20 plus below 20 like you've never seen.
But even more, it can even help with like geography and literature and just the amount of reading, the amount of actually like thinking in that universe.
There is a kind of very, I don't know, I guess like a learning aspect to it, because first of all, you read a lot of stuff, and it's not incredibly dense, complicated wording. It's not like law, but it's definitely a bit more than what you might normally read on the internet or whatever, or even a book. It's different because it's a manual and or stories, and it's written in a certain kind of lingo, because the rules of the game that it has to write about. So you learn that, you learn comprehension skills as a part of that. You learn, social skills as a group with your friends, right? And you learn basic math. You get really fast at basic math.
D20s, D6s.
It's just like
probabilities.
It grows your abilities, I guess. Like it's, it's.
Andrew Byers and Francisco Crocco, authors of the book The Role-Playing Society, Essays on Cultural Influence of RPGs, claims on page 144 that role-playing exercises and games have been used for educational purposes in a variety of disciplines and have been shown to improve learning outcomes when compared to more traditional pedagogical approaches. What, if any, effects has D&D had to improve your education over the years?
Well, I imagine it's had to definitely subtly improve, like I was just saying, my reading comprehension, math, also reading comprehension, but less in a manual sense, more of a literature sense, because the stories. My writing abilities, that's a big point I meant to touch on, is as a player in the game, you're creating a story with the other players, and it's kind of improving. And if you are playing in a way that you care about the story and making a good story with your friends, you'll learn tricks and things of not necessarily tricks, but writing skills, story writing skills. And especially if you're the dungeon master of the game, where you are kind of the overseer, right? The person kind of running it, you have a larger hand in the story. So
you got him, babe. Let him go.
Having done both of those roles, very in depth, creating very in depth, long arcing stories, with so many different people over so many years, has definitely improved my ability to do that.
In what other ways do you think games, like TTRPGs or just in general, could help one live a dream life?
Well, two kind of distinct thought processes here. One, a dream life specifically in the sense of playing out your fantasies, like a more, not that your life is dreamlike, but that you get to imagine your dreams.
Theater.
And I bring that up specifically because I feel that's an important part of having a dream life to me, right? So if I live a perfect life, right, because my life is perfect, because what else could it be? Like, it's my life, it's the only one, so it is perfect, right? Instead of living just a perfect life and having these dreams about these fantastical things that I can't do even in my perfect life, I am now living a perfect life and also acting out those dreams and talking about them with other people. I mean, when you read a book, when you read Lord of the Rings, and you hear about the magic that Gandalf does, right? Or Harry Potter. When you read Harry Potter and you read about the magic, you're like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Right? And you can't do that, but if you can sit around with your friends and talk about it for 4 hours...
It's almost as if you are.
And act like you're doing, pretend, just like in voice, whatever, but also play, because it's this good combo of role-playing and gaming, and also play it out with rules. To me, it's just like a perfect exhibition of those dreams. So I think it's very important to living a dream life. And then also, then backing out into the second sense is, by doing that, right, that is a part of me living my dream life, is living out my dreams and, pretend even. But it also allows me to live a dream life in ways of, like, gaining more friends, getting closer with people. I met people in Miami that I just, like, found on a website, like I found online, and met up and didn't get kidnapped, and they were really nice people, and we played D&D together. It was like a middle-aged couple and like two dudes in their 20s. It was great. So it's also helped me to live a dream life in that sense of learning and growing as a person and having those fun times basically with my friends.
All right. Coming from a different angle here, gaming. What effect do you think turning everyday mundane tasks into a game could have on one's mental health?
Oh, a very good effect. That's kind of something I do to an extent where I mean, different little things, maybe I'll make a little game out of it, whatever, but with almost everything I do, I'm kind of always actively playing something that is kind of like a game to me because I am specifically gaming it, right? And so the point of gaming a system, right? And the big thing with strategy games, the games I like, is you're finding within the rule set the best possibility of like winning, for example, for a board game. So in my real life, I am gaming life to do things as efficiently as possible I am actively always on a grand scale of my life goals, on a little scale of what I'm doing at work today, on an even smaller scale of how I'm cleaning the dishes or wiping a table. I'm always looking for the most efficient, specific way to do it.
So one could say you're gamifying your life.
Yes. And I also specifically like to note the distinction between efficient and fast. I'm not just trying to do it fast specifically, like literally, moving my body around quickly and rushing through because that's how I make mistakes or drop something and break it. Specifically, the efficiency aspect of finding the best
You're trying to
order
do something as
to do
thoroughly
the
and
steps
as best as possible.
and what way I should do, how I should do it so that it'll get done the most effectively.
All right. The authors of the book, The Role-Playing Society, Essays on Cultural Influence of RPGs, on page 280, claims, because of its touted ability to improve engagement, gamification has become the subject of both immense hype and scrutiny. Supporters have hailed gamification as the latest, greatest way to maximize engagement. With this study in mind, do you find the concept of gamification, the use of challenges, rewards, and engagement strategies, as being a part of your life as you take part in personal success, career growth, and everyday fulfillment? We're talking more. So we've talked about how you do everything as if it's a game. Would you say that you fall in line with how this is with with their claim there? Do you support their claim?
I mean, I feel like their claim is very much kind of what I've been saying.
Yeah.
But you said in that claim, did they specifically make a point about rewards and
they didn't
consequences?
But the idea of gamifying a workspace to make them more efficient, more engaged. Do you consider that
a good idea?
Yeah,
I sure do. Yeah, that is very much like I said. How I live my life.
Familiar in what you're saying.
But also, yes, I think that could be very useful if applied correctly. In, workspaces, school spaces, team spaces, things like that.
I think what I'm more trying to ask is, that is sort of what you're doing with your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of what that question was. That
is what I'm doing with my. That is, I follow that claim. I think they're right.
We're gonna keep going here. What would you tell someone who is trying to get into tabletop RPGs? I kind of skipped that with rock climbing, but I can include that in my profile. More so in this concept because this can be a little more tricky.
With D&D, I would definitely say to read, because and to watch people play D&D. To watch people who play D&D fairly rules strictly, just so you can get a solid grasp. Not even that it has to be super strict to the rules, but that they talk about it. Mm-hmm. When I started playing D&D, I started watching Critical Role, right? Very popular one. I really liked their second campaign. And they mention things out loud a lot of, they talk about the roles and stuff. They're not super vague about it because they're talking about it with each other. And that helps you get a great understanding. And reading the books is important. At least to some extent, because it's just there's information, there's just stuff you gotta know, and you don't have to know everything, but if you can know your stuff, if you're a player, your classes and everything,
class,
that
race,
stuff,
all that good stuff.
That's important to know so that you are following the rules, which is a whole other thing, but at least understanding how to play your character, because there's a difference between the group bending the rules together because it's more fun, or just not, or adding their own rules or whatever. That's perfectly fine, but just not understanding how to do the regular steps of the game that are more integral than specific little rules is detrimental to the game as a whole. And you're playing the game to have fun. And if it's ruining other people's fun and your own, because it's going to be less fun for you if you don't understand what you're doing, then, that sucks for everyone.
So your key point would be just pick up a book and learn.
Yes.
Learn from watching.
Like if it's like Dungeons and Dragons, the player's handbook, a lot of games it'll just have the core rule book. Just pick it up and just read. You don't have to read it cover to cover, but just read it.
We've now talked a lot. We've now talked a lot about some of your more favorite hobbies: rock climbing, Dungeons and Dragons, how they've affected your life, and we've covered your religion. Let's move more on to now some of these heavier hitting questions. Some of these questions about your career path, what your plans are for the future, and just some deeper questions. As someone already facing personal challenges of not being able to drive and is actively moving, it's impressive that you've managed to keep a level head. How do you cope with the stress of constant Can't read. How do you cope with constant stress and hurdles being thrown your way? Loss of hobbies, the incapability of driving for now, changing bachelors even. We haven't talked about that much in the interview so far, but you are actively switching up your college life now that you've moved.
Yes, yeah, especially now. Really, I'm kind of like, whoa.
Even just coping with finding the apartment that you're now currently moving into and new jobs. How do you manage to deal with all these things?
I play a lot of pool at
Yeah.
my parents' house. I sit out there and I play pool by myself. It's very relaxing. But I really I cope by reminding myself how fine it is. Because it's like, dang, I wish I could be climbing and I wish I could be playing D&D. But I don't know, like I'm alive, so that's really cool. And I think of that and I think, I'm here. I live with my girlfriend. She's great. I still see my parents all the time. My friends come over and hang out. I love the people. I just think about the good things. I really focus on
about the good things.
What's good. And the fact that what's bad is not so bad. I woke up this morning and I had breakfast and then I had lunch and I'm going to have dinner in a little bit. I've drinking plenty of water. I don't have like a deadly disease probably. So whatever. Like I guess it sucks that I can't drive, but like eventually I'll be able to, or maybe I won't, and I'll keep living.
All right. So keep on with your life, distractions, and focus on what's good. It comes to my attention that you've taken a semester off to move and decide on what bachelors you wanted to switch into. As someone furthering their education in college and facing many challenges, how do you manage to block out the noise and decide what decisions to make next?
I take a few hours and I sit down and I do a bunch of research on the school websites and seeing what classes would work out and seeing what majors work in what way. And then usually I'll talk to a counselor on the phone or in person, like an advisor at a school or something. And then they'll say something. And I kind of latch onto that. And then I look into that. And I'm like, that's a great option. And then I find out later that it wasn't a great option. And I've learned now, the issue with that is it's not really either. It's more so that the option doesn't matter as much as I originally thought it did, specifically like my bachelor's degree. I had been, going back and forth between majors, and now I'm just like, I'm going to do one, and then I'm going to go to law school, and that'll be fine. And if I do a major and I don't go to law school, and that'll be fine. I'll get a job that is useful within that major, and, hopefully it's something I love doing. I'm sure it will be, because I won't do it if I don't love to do it.
In the news article, College Choice releases 2016 ranking of the best online bachelor's in criminal justice degree program. The author states, a bachelor's degree in criminal justice is worth considering, being the only bachelor's degree that he's really recommending. As someone who recently changed their mind and decided to switch from a bachelor's in criminal justice to something else, what changed your mind?
What changed my mind is that my girlfriend and I would like to move to Germany. Maybe not anymore. We're not so sure, but we were pretty solidly wanting to move to Germany after I got my law degree.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's been something we talked about a lot. Move there. But if I did that, I would need to have some sort of degree that would allow me to practice law or do something in the field in another country, right?
Mm.
So what was explained to me by a guidance counselor at FIU was that criminal justice wouldn't be very useful for that, whereas international relations would be.
That sounds about
that
right.
degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that was bull. That was, it would definitely be more useful, but only in honestly a fairly small set of fields that are a little out of what I'm looking for. It is useful for, say, an international lawyer, which is like, yes, but it's not in the way that I'm looking for.
Okay.
So I ended up switching out of that degree now.
So currently, what colleges, if any, have you considered switching to now that you've moved from Miami?
Well, for a little while, I was thinking Seminole State College here in Seminole County.
Okay.
And then I looked at their programs, and they do not have BA degrees. So I said, uh-oh, can't do that, right?
Yeah, no.
So now I'm considering, my next few options are UCF or one of those other colleges down in Orlando. They're all about 35 minutes away from me. I figure UCF would be the best option of those. Or Stetson, which is not a very realistic option because they're much more expensive and would not be fully covered by my scholarship. In fact, they'd be barely covered by my scholarship.
That's a lot of debt.
Or I have recently considered Kaiser because they have a BA in legal studies and they have a focus as well with that BA that you can take in law office management, and I really considered that, but I think I'm going to go more likely with an English degree, maybe with like a rhetorical writing center, because of course that's just like the most useful one, as much as I would love to do creative writing, which they do have at UCF.
I'm noticing you're looking at a lot of what each of these colleges specifically offers. You're really doing a lot of research on this, which is very important. The newsletter article also gives a link to a website that searches for optimal colleges for the degree you're searching for based on factors such as tuition, reputation, and return on investment. If you were to switch colleges to pursue your bachelor's, how would you deal with time management, keeping up with school, work, home life, and personal health? How would you deal with time management?
Well, it would definitely have to be, and it will be, once I start driving again. That's when I intend to return to school, to one of these schools near here, for now, instead of FIU. And maybe forever, I don't know. But, so, it will definitely have to be when I'm driving, and it will be difficult, because it's always difficult. I've always worked full-time and gone to school full-time, and it is difficult, but it is generally how I've lived my life, and it's not insane. It's stressful, and it's very frustrating. School is very frustrating, but it's also something that I really like doing, as kind of backwards as that sounds. I don't want to do the work. I just love learning. I just love learning the stuff in the school, but obviously I have to do the schoolwork, and I get great grades and everything, so, and some of the work is interesting, some of it I like to do, but I love to just hear a lecture and take notes and discuss it with the class. Like, that's just honestly fun for me.
That's very healthy. That's also something I can sort of relate to in college. The article gives you a link to search for the bachelor's base.
Mm-hmm.
How do you weed out the colleges? How do you go about finding all the information?
Well, I have...
Because for a lot of people that struggles, especially if they're going for a specific bachelor's.
It is very difficult, especially because you're not really taught how to do it.
Yeah.
I think the AVID program teaches it. So maybe that's my fault, because I was in the AVID program, then I said, this guy kind of sucks, so I left the AVID program. So maybe that's on me, but I found that in high school, especially at my high school at least, and without college educated parents, educated sounds silly, but like they didn't go to college, I just didn't know what I was doing at all for a long time. And now I've learned through that just trial and error and asking people and not it's you always feel like you're behind on information.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to know what are the right steps to take. It's like there's a whole kind of society and system like of just how credits work and degrees work and whatever, right? Just the way it works that is very complicated and isn't taught to people. And also the computer literacy to know what websites to look up, what to look for in the websites. Like now I know that if I want to look for a certain bachelor's degree, right, at a certain college, I go to their website, I click on programs, I search it up. But 3 or 4 years ago, 2 years ago even 1 year ago, I didn't know how that worked, right? No one had ever shown me that was that simple. No one had ever really properly explained. I mean, by that point I knew, but even within years more recently, didn't know really what an AA and an AS and a BA and a BS and an MS and an MA and all these different degrees, what they were, what they meant, and how they interacted, right? So now I've grown to know it's like, it's the computer literacy side of it, of just knowing what the resources are, and also knowing what track you need to keep yourself to.
You've talked about changing from the criminal justice degree, and then your guidance counselor suggested a different degree that you were calling BS. What degree are you going for currently? What bachelor's?
I think I'm gonna do writing. English, I mean, with a rhetorical writing specific interest. I know they have a program like that at FIU, and they have a program like that at UCF. They seem to be very similar. It's basically more focused on writing for things like this, for an interview, for a news article, writing in a technical and non-fictional prose or any of that type of way. It's more technical writing, understanding, and the computer literacy that comes with that. It's being able to function in a lot of businesses where you're just required to be able to write things out, especially in law. You have to understand the language very well. So I've been super, I don't know, really lately trying to figure it out, but that seems like the prevailing option right now.
Writing. Interesting. It's interesting. What are your interests when considering different bachelor's degrees, though? Like, what are you looking for?
So, what I've been looking for has actually changed over time. At first, I was looking for the bachelor's degree that is appropriate for the field of work I want to go into. And then it more kind of changed to the bachelor degree that is A, appropriate, but also B, can be appropriate for other things as well, so I can have options. So it can be useful even without a law degree. And then it evolved even furthermore into having options and having international options, right?
Mm.
And then I've finally gotten to a point now where it's been explained to me properly and I've understood properly that it's not about what bachelor is best for what job. It's about what bachelor is best for the skills you want to accomplish, the things you want to learn, and the type of work you want to do, but it's not bachelor to job, it's more like bachelor to field.
Bachelor's
Except for in
interests that you
except
can
in
apply.
there are a lot of more specific cases, especially like medical things, science things, but like arts bachelors are things that apply to being a lawyer or a writer or this or that or whatever.
Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting look on how to actually apply for a bachelor's.
And you know what it's able to accomplish, more qu- quantifiable things, obviously regular.
So
things.
what? It's not about going from bachelor's to career, but what career are you looking to pursue after you obtain your bachelor's? Is there any specific field or?
Well, I'd like to be a lawyer, but sometimes I'm not so sure if I'd like to be a lawyer, so maybe I'll be something else. I definitely would like to write. Honestly, preferably fiction books. But I suppose I'm going to end up writing a lot whatever field I go into. I'm going to go into a field where I have to write because it's something that I do a lot.
All right, here's some deep questions to tie off our interview because we are running a little past time now. What ways does your life now reflect that what you pictured as a kid?
Oh, nothing like. I definitely come to imagine my life now. I mean, literally, the type of place I live in, the people I'm around, the way I live my life, the things I've done, the things I do on a daily basis. I mean, technology is just like different, you know.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure I did imagine myself grown up a lot. I don't feel like I imagined myself at this age a lot. I feel like I've always imagined myself like
All right.
30.
That's a good transition then. What are some of your future goals? Like, what are your long-term goals moving forward?
Well, I have a lot of goals, definitely. I'd say on the really big paths, I need to graduate school, get into a career I like, get married, have children.
All right. With that path in mind, where do you see yourself in 10 years from now?
You know, having done all those things, certainly.
Certainly.
And like having children isn't the most important thing, but hopefully 10 years from now. Oh, and owning a home. I'd very much like to own a house,
Oh yes.
and I foresee that 10 years from now. Crossing my fingers.
We're gonna look back at this audio 10 years from now.
Yeah, we'll see. But also I have a lot of little things I'd like to accomplish, whether it be D&D games I want to run, or if it's, like I'd like a Galapagos tortoise. I can't have that, I know, but just like random things.
In 10 years from now, you might be able to have a Galapagos. Wait, no.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I could.
Maybe.
So the point is, well, I think because they're like protected.
Yeah. You have to get some licenses.
But the thing is, just I'd like to do all these things, and I think I'll have accomplished most of my big goals in life. But I think I'm just gonna be living life, because the thing is, every day when you're living life, you're not thinking, well, you are, but you're not experiencing it from that multi-year view span. So it's not going to matter so much then.
All right. What is some of the best advice you've ever been given? What advice can you remember that you think, wow, that has affected me, that is great, I should spread that? He's a deep thinker.
Mm-hmm. What advice have
Mhm.
I been given? I gotta think about advice I've been given. I can't think of something profound, but I will say the most useful advice I've had
Mhm.
that like the most commonly used one for me that like I really think about it and I go, I gotta do this,
Mhm.
is if someone offers you something
Yep.
and you're not sure if you should really take it, like not like some guy on the street, like if someone's like giving, says, oh, I'll pay for this or whatever,
Yeah.
and you're like, I don't know, you can say, oh, you don't have to do that. But then if they continue and say, yeah, like, I'll do it for you, then you should just accept it. Because it's, it's free stuff. I love free stuff. But it's, or nice acts or whatever,
Uh-huh.
It's just like, this person wants to do this for you, and clearly it is going to bring them joy. Let them do it, unless maybe they're like manipulative or something. But that's kind of a separate point. And also, if they are going on to push it after you said, oh, that's okay, then clearly, they've probably thought it through at least a little bit and seemingly want to do it pretty bad if they're able to go, no, yes, I will still do this even after you
Yeah.
say no once. So, yeah, you should let them.
I think it's solid. I wouldn't say anyone's ever really told me that before, but that is, I think,
Just someone described it that way of just if, say no thanks once, and if they continue, just yeah, why not? It just saves everyone time, and it makes everyone happy.
All right. To wrap up this interview, I'd like to ask you one last question.
Okay.
What advice would you give someone who is trying to live their best dream life?
Their best dream life.
You're living your dream life. What advice would you give someone who's trying to live their dream life?
I'd say do whatever you want.
Whatever you want?
Well, they'd have to understand that whatever you want includes, wanting to maybe not inflict consequences on yourself. So maybe it's within your wants to do something, but not like go kill someone, right? Because you don't want to get murdered, right? Do whatever you want. Be logical.
Do whatever
If you want to do
be
something
logical.
and you can do it, and it helps people or doesn't hurt people, do it.
Do whatever you want. Be logical. All right.
Do
Thank
whatever
you for
you
your
want
time.
specifically,
Uh-huh.
and just be logical about that.
Okay.
Think about that. And
well, thank you for your time, Sid. It's been a little over an hour now.
Oops.
This has been amazing, and I can't wait to make a profile of you.
Thank you very much.